Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
As President Biden announced last evening, the Department of Defense will undertake an emergency mission to establish a temporary pier in Gaza, working alongside like-minded countries and partners. JLOTS is a unique capability maintained by the Department of Defense whereby U.S. Army and U.S. Navy forces are organized, trained, and equipped to conduct joint ship-to-shore operations where fixed port facilities are inadequate or unavailable. Simply put, they'll establish a temporary offshore maritime pier that allows for shipping vessels to transfer cargo to smaller vessels to transport and offload cargo to a temporary causeway for the delivery of humanitarian aid to Gaza. The concept that is being planned involves the presence of U.S. military personnel on military vessels offshore, but does not require U.S. military personnel to go ashore. In terms of security on the ground, we're continuing to plan and coordinate with partners in the region. And as for aid distribution, we'll have more details in the future, but we are coordinating with ally and partner nations, the UN, and humanitarian NGOs on the way ahead for distribution of assistance into Gaza. Finally, in terms of timing, we're working to set this up as quickly as possible, but we expect that it will take several weeks to plan and execute. Once operational, the actual amount of aid delivered will depend on many variables and will likely scale over time. However, we expect that deliveries via JLOTS could provide more than 2 million meals to the citizens of Gaza per day.
The threat to Americans of our own making continues to grow, folks. Welcome to More War Mondays here on the Rob Maness Show live on Patriot.tv and our X Spaces simulcast. We're setting our own traps in the Middle East again. Americans are guaranteed to die in this Gaza port operation. From joint logistics expert on X at Cynical Publius, you should all follow him. Here's what he says in his Reader's Digest version. Biden is sending U.S. logistics troops to do a humanitarian aid mission, and he's pretending those logistics troops don't need U.S. combat arms troops as security because Hamas will lovingly provide such security. Many Americans will die. That's his Reader's Digest version. And go to that account, Cynical Publius, for a detailed explanation about why implementing a joint logistics over-the-shore operation in Gaza with no American combat force security is absolutely nuts, especially since the reason that Biden's doing it is to secure 100,000 Muslim votes in Michigan for himself in this presidential election. The domestic Hamas extremist threat is also real, even from inside our own armed forces. As we'll show you today, the American extremists supporting the Hamas atrocities of October 7, 2023 are here, and they mean to kill you and themselves. But that's not the worst part of the domestic threat, my friends. Hundreds of thousands of military-age males from places like China, Iran, Venezuela, Turkey, Syria, Yemen, Somalia, and yes, even Gaza and Lebanon have entered our country illegally in the last 3 years under Biden's open border invasion to our south. The threat is so real that my guest today wrote his latest book about it, detailing how nationwide attacks by these illegals will be executed. U.S. Army retired Colonel and attorney Kurt Schlichter is the author of his new book, The Attack, set in the very near future and ripped absolutely from today's headlines. The Attack is a terrifying novel, and it describes in frightening detail exactly how these America's enemies can launch a massive terrorist assault here at home. Colonel Schlichter, Kurt, my friend, welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's been too long.
It has been. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, hey, man, I wanted to start out, just talking about the war between Israel and Hamas in the Middle East, because we do like to update everybody, and it's been a while since we talked about that particular conflict here. And the J-Lots impending fiasco. I hate to laugh
Oh, that's
because
a disaster.
Americans are going to die.
So we're going to outsource security to the local scumbags. I seem to remember that didn't work out so good in Kabul. I was actually the attorney for a short period for the mother of the Marine killed in whose father spoke up at the State of the Union address. So I've seen the consequences of this up close on the families. I'm old enough to remember 1983. You would think that Joe Biden is. I remember Somalia. This is a disaster. This is going to be so bad. And my favorite part is there'll be no boots on the ground. Well, sand's not really ground. It's just so inconceivably stupid. The only thing we should be giving the Palestinians are airstrikes. I mean, they murdered a bunch of Americans. They're holding a bunch of Americans. There's an easy solution to their starvation problem. It's called releasing the hostages and surrendering. I don't understand why we're supposed to treat these people with kid gloves. They started a war. We ought to finish it.
Absolutely. I've been calling for Israel to demand unconditional surrender forever. I mean, that's what these people deserve is unconditional surrender requirements, and you either surrender or you die. I mean, that is where the Israeli people are. I'm sure they're still thinking that way. I think I saw Netanyahu talking about this shortly after Biden's speech. But let's just show folks how much lying is being done. That's a 2-star general you just saw in the opening, folks. It's Major General Patrick Ryder from my service. There are full of them. All the services are full of these liars. Bring up the J-Lots graphic real quick. All right, the brown stuff to your right is dirt. The blue stuff is water. I can't make it any simpler than this. The boxes on the brown stuff are all places that American boots have to be on the ground to take the stuff from the blue stuff through the little green identifiers there that are touching the shore and the red and yellow line areas. And those are the piers and the dock and the port. And that's what has to happen. And on the brown stuff, if you don't have American combat troops securing that, Americans will die. Is that right, Kurt?
Well, I mean, it's so obvious. Let's assume that the Hamas guys don't immediately try killing Americans directly. Let's just assume that, even though death to America is tattooed on their tramp stamp. Okay, so we unload a bunch of food. The local Hamas scumbags with guns come and take it, and we do what?
Exactly.
Watch? It's so unbelievably stupid. I have a different idea. It's called winning. All right, Israel's surrounded by Rafah. I think Israel needs to build up combat power at the same time. Continue to engage and degrade the enemy, make them defend. I would, if Colonel Schlichter was in command, every night we would probe one of the areas. We would launch an attack. We would force them to reorient. When they move, you can kill them. We would do that. When they fight you, you can kill them. We would do that. And I would just grind them down. You don't even have to go into Rafah for a couple of weeks while you're building up power. You just have the guys on the front line engaging. They've got to defend 360 degrees. You get to pick where to fight. You get to pick how to fight, and you own the air. I would just run up the score on these bastards. For a couple
I think
weeks.
That's what they're doing. I think that's what they're doing.
Well,
but
I sure hope so. But we don't have any actual reporting. I mean, Rob, something that's pretty basic for guys like us is a map. How hard is it to find a map of the lines right now? What do Israelis hold? What do the bad guys hold? I'd like to know. You would think that, one of our fine news services would do that, but the problem when you have 25-year-olds who've never done anything running the newspapers, and make no mistake, they are running them, is they don't know what they're looking for. They don't know what they need to show you. If you want an idea of what's going on in the fight, the first thing you need is a map, and you can't find one.
Yeah, you're exactly right. All they're worried about is reporting the Hamas government's health ministry's casualty numbers, which are an absolute lie, folks, an absolute lie. And here's another secret. This is an age-old, goes back to medieval times, recorded history. Any town or garrison under siege that gets humanitarian aid, where does that aid go first? To the fighters that are maintaining the garrison and continue to feed them, house them, clothe them, and give them medical care. Am I right, Kurt? You're an Army guy.
Yeah,
I mean, that's an Army truth.
Yeah. I mean, the guy with the guns gets the grub. But here's the thing. There's no humanitarian aid. This is a new thing. This is a new kind of siege where we're responsible for feeding the enemy. See, that's the thing. We need to rediscover concepts like the enemy and victory. I want to defeat Hamas. I want them destroyed completely. Fortunately, so 90% of Israelis, they like to blame it on Netanyahu. Frankly, Netanyahu is holding them back.
Yes.
If you got Netanyahu out of the way, we might actually get this done. I don't want to undersell what the Israelis have done. They've done it remarkably well with remarkably few casualties. I mean, they've lost 250 guys in this fight, half a battalion. I consider that remarkable, particularly since they've done about 12,000 of these Hamas scumbags. Sure, 12,000 are rookie numbers. They need to pump that up. But the ratio is pretty amazing. I find it remarkable how careful they are about the Palestinian civilians who participated in this and supported the attack on Israel and still support Hamas. So I care about them as much as I cared about the German or Japanese during World War II. Now, you and I understand the American way of war is a little different. Okay? If I was in command in an American unit and somebody fired at me from a building, I'm not charging the building. I'm going to get my S-3 Air to call you, and you're going to flatten the building and all the buildings around it. And then my guys are going to walk through and survive. Because I think it's really hard to explain why we're giving up American lives to save the enemy. So we typically don't do that. I mean, now the rules of engagement have changed a little, but we need to get back to tradition, which is waging war in such a way that for 10 generations, if they want to scare children, they will tell them the Americans are coming.
Yeah, exactly right. And this joint logistics on the shore thing, I mean, there's only like one capability in the entire United States for that. And while we're wasting it on this and getting those people killed that are highly specialized, by the way, and many of the individuals manning that transportation, I think it's the 7th transportation or something like that, are women. They're women, and we know Hamas loves the women when they're the enemies, don't we?
Well, I'm wondering what. How they're going to excuse, captured American women being raped and murdered, because that's what they do. Yeah. Now understand that our liberal elite will excuse it, and it'll be okay with them. After all, it's not their sons and daughters who are being asked to go sacrifice their lives for this idiocy. It's you wonder why the recruiting crisis is so profound. And well, you and I don't wonder. Our friends don't wonder. Our fellow vets don't wonder. I mean, it's well known within the veterans community that all of us vets are telling people don't enlist right now. which is horrible to us. Both of you and I both started as enlisted troops and worked our way up, and that is a pathway to the future for many, many Americans, and it's being blocked now intentionally. They don't want a warrior class. They want much like the Romans, they want an army of outsiders who they can control. Of course, we saw how well that worked for the Romans. Yeah, it's bad. We need President Trump, and he needs to spend time in political capital fixing the military.
Yeah, and in this next segment after this break, we're going to see a video of exactly how bad it is. And unfortunately, it's another Air Force guy. I have to call out my own service. We're going to talk about the Hamas extremists that are inside our military now because our leadership's looking for some fake white male supremacist domestic violent extremists instead of the real ones. And we'll show you one right after this break. And we'll be right back with retired U.S. Army Colonel and attorney and author Kurt Schlichter.
The markets are getting crazy, and now is the time to protect yourself from economic turmoil. Silver is in the headlines right now and creating lots of excitement as the price of silver is extremely attractive compared to gold. A call to Swiss America gets you the scoop on whether the silver opportunity is for real. What you'll discover will really blow your mind. Today, silver faces a huge shortage due to the rising demand by military, solar, electric cars, and computers, all of which depend on silver. But right now, silver is priced to sell according to worldwide experts. Now, to help you get started, Swiss America is offering beautiful United States Walking Liberty half dollars, issued by the U.S. Mint from 1916 to 1947 and minted in 90% pure silver for a special introductory price. Limit of $250 per customer while supplies last. So call the number on your screen or visit SwissAmerica.com because now is the time to rediscover silver.
We've learned through the pandemic we can never be caught unprepared again. And so many Americans, when COVID hit, they had nothing in the house. Stores were shut down and doctors' offices were shut down. And even if doctors prescribed drugs, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, pharmacists wouldn't fill the prescriptions. That was a nightmare.
Now the situation is much worse. We have these horrible supply chain problems. In our emergency medical kit at the Wellness Company, we have 8 prescription drugs that are all potentially life-saving.
Most people who died with COVID, they died in the hospital because they didn't receive early treatment.
Every American family should have one of these.
I can tell you the Wellness Company kit is the answer.
I am an active duty member of the United States Air Force, and I will no longer be complicit in genocide. I'm about to engage in an extreme act of protest, but compared to what people have been experiencing in Palestine at the hands of their colonizers, it's not extreme at all. This is what our ruling class has decided will be normal.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. And what you just saw there was a Hamas extremist embedded in the United States Air Force, a white male Caucasian Hamas extremist spouting leftist propaganda as he committed a violent act in front of the Israeli embassy to commit suicide by fire, self-immolation, in Washington, D.C. just a few weeks ago. That is the extremism that's embedded in the United States Armed Forces, because the domestic terrorist extremists that the Department of Defense and our intelligence services have been wasting resources looking for are white supremacist extremists, not this kind of extremists. And we're talking with retired U.S. Army Colonel and author and attorney Kurt Schlichter today. Kurt, I couldn't find a video that didn't have him blurred. I wanted to show it not blurred because this just disgusts me that we have come to this. But this really is a symbol to me, man, that that the rot within the Department of Defense and all the services is really strong, especially when you hear the propaganda the guy spouted about their colonizers and those kind of things, when I think Jewish people have been on the property there in Israel for what, several thousand years, maybe 5,000 or so? I don't know.
5.
Yeah.
Look, this. Look, I have no sympathy for this scumbag traitor. He supported the enemies of the United States who murdered Americans, who are holding Americans hostage. He sided with the enemy. If he wants to set himself on fire, well, hey, okay. I mean, you know, he's an idiot. He's a dirtbag. He's a disgrace to the uniform. He's violated his oath. He's violated the Uniform Code of Military Justice. He's just a disgrace on every level. But you're right, it does show the rot that we have within the military. Some of it is political, like this idiot. Others are people who are just have no moral values and no real comprehension or understanding of their duties, like that airman who gave away confidential information or classified information on Ukraine. And he's now going to do 10, 12 years in jail because of it. Apparently, he's not senile, so he can be held responsible for mishandling classified information. But the two-track justice system is a whole different issue. The simple fact is we have a military with no leadership example. I mean, you look at our leadership, they tolerate men dressing as women and force normal people to refer to a man as ma'am. The drug and alcohol testing, you have young women who are forced to watch men do their drug test because the men have decided that they're now women, and we all have to pretend that's true, despite the mortifying and humiliating effect on our troops. The question is, you know, for normal Americans, why would you join the military now? Why would you be treated like garbage as they were under COVID? Why would you be have your traditional values hated? Why would you be called an extremist or a racist by these morons? You know, Rob, you're a Desert Storm guy too. That's the last time we unequivocally won a war.
Right.
A major war. And 30 years is a long time. And this is the fault of a Pentagon leadership that is entirely strategically bankrupt. It's morally bankrupt too. People ask me, well, you know, what do we have to do to get the military back? And do we have to get more equipment? Do we have to get it more money? No. Step one is to fix the culture. And that means a commander-in-chief who demands the culture be fixed. And there are general officers and admirals who will conform and will comply. You've got to find them. You've got to fire the others. You've got to make clear, look, we're not going to be a joke. You're going to wear the uniform of your sex, period, all the time. Your pronouns are he or she. That's it. We're not doing this. If you're now it's the Army's term, if you're some weirdo who likes to dress as a dog for group sex with subordinates, well, you know, enjoy Leavenworth, because you don't get to be a pervert or a weirdo. We're
or
about
hold power over subordinates like that. I mean, that's one of the issues,
yeah,
man,
you look at that. Look, here's the question I ask, Rob. Who's the general officer? Who's the flag officer who got fired for Iraq? Who's the flag officer who got fired for Afghanistan? They rotated McKiernan out because he wasn't cutting it. Okay. They rotated him out. They didn't retire. They didn't relieve him. You know, you got. I mean, the guys who screwed up Iraq went and got promoted.
Mm-hmm.
How about we start treating them like we did in World War II? You've got about 2 months to prove yourself, and if you don't, okay, you're going to go handle a supply depot in Mississippi, and we're going to get 37-year-old Jumpin' Jim Gavin to go in there and take over the division, and he's going to be a warfighter, and he's going to win.
Yep, we need some Pattons and Gavins and those kind of folks, man. You know, it's really weird that this guy was, they held a candlelight visual by a private Facebook spouses group on in San Antonio, and he was an NSA worker too. So he's like one of the people spying on Americans.
Yeah.
That's how infiltrated he was.
The NSA
you had to bring up the president and the dual track thing. Well, he set the president set the example for the kid that divulged the classified information.
Yeah.
But the kid's going to go to jail for 12 years. Well, we've got a live audience, and I let them ask a question every segment, and we missed it. And I got a hand up over in the Next Spaces audience. So let's get that hand raised up there. We've got Kat and Shell are our hosts over there to ask Colonel Schlichter a question.
Go ahead, John.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Colonel. Thank you for joining. My question is real quick. With the fact that Israel is our ally and we're about to give aid and comfort to their enemy, and the high probability of an attack by those people, Hamas, is this a problem where the generals are woke and on board with Biden's administration, or is this Biden saying, I don't care what the problem is, we're doing this?
Capability. It's not like Joe Biden's an expert in Army forward deployed logistics. Somebody said, we could do X, Y, Z, and then the commander-in-chief ordered it. And, when the commander-in-chief orders something, you've got to do it. And it is the place of the general officers, the flag officers, to advise the commander-in-chief. If they feel that they cannot perform those duties, it is their job to rip the epaulets off their shoulders, throw them on the desk, and say, I quit. And then people would pay attention. But nobody's quit. I mentioned it, nobody's fired. Nobody's quit. And they fall into this trap where they think, well, I'm so important and vital myself that I have to stay here, and maybe I can control the idiocy. Maybe I can, maybe if I'm here, I can ameliorate the problems. No. If it's a bad idea and you think you can't do it, then you ask to be relieved and retire, and you sacrifice yourself and you draw attention. But that is the answer. Nobody did that during Vietnam, and in fact, McMaster wrote a book about it. And nobody's done it during Iraq or Afghanistan, and nobody's doing it today. And a lot of these flag officers are putting their career and their retirement and their cushy sinecure at Raytheon or Lockheed or wherever ahead of their duty, and that's the problem. And the troops see it. The troops understand that at the end of the day, they'll get screwed over and there'll be no accountability. Who's the guy who lost one step of rank over what happened in Afghanistan? The answer is nobody.
That's right. I mean, the only officer that was held accountable for Afghanistan was Stu Scheller, a lieutenant colonel who was incarcerated and drummed out of the Marine Corps because he had the audacity to say what you just said on a video that he was wearing his uniform. I mean, folks, you need to use good tactics on these kind of things and not put yourself.
Maybe not the best idea,
Yeah, but
You
he
know,
was
it is.
destroyed, Kurt. Nobody else was. I mean, not one general or admiral stepped up over the illegal COVID vaccine mandate order and said, "Wait a minute, we don't have this stuff." And these kids that were
So here's
drummed
the
out of
thing.
the military proved that they didn't have the stuff that they were mandating according to the law. It's crazy. Well, we got to take another break. When we come back, I want to go into your book, The Attack, because it's very relevant to everything we've been talking about here today, and even more so now than it was when you first released it late in the year last year, man, because we have to recognize that we're not going to be able to be an isolated country separated by two oceans from America's greatest enemies anymore. And Kurt Schlichter does and has written about it. We'll be right back on the Rob Maness Show on Patriot.tv.
Sounds rolling. All 3 cameras. We're good.
Is there any regrets that you have in life? I should sit here and say, yeah, I got a lot of regrets. But when I look back on my life and I understand the lives that were lost, I mean, I'm sitting here with you. And I can tell my story.
Former National Security Advisor Lieutenant General Michael Flynn pleaded guilty today to lying to the FBI.
He was one of the most respected generals in the military.
He was, by definition, the most dangerous possible person for Donald Trump to hire.
Brilliant military career, serving 33 years. Why was he being so elusive?
Mike Flynn told the truth and faced life in prison.
Hi neighbor, Pat Boone here. Today, I want to help you find some peace of mind concerning your money. Like it or not, we're all living in a financial war zone. That's right, we're watching our hard-earned dollars get crushed by inflation. In fact, recently inflation reached its highest level in 40 years. And on top of that, cash, which has always represented freedom and privacy, is more and more being replaced by a cashless system. That's right, powerful forces are definitely waging a war against cash. So I'm encouraging you to prepare before it's too late. Call or text the number on the screen for a free report, The Secret War on Cash from Swiss America. Discover how a few simple steps can protect your money as well as your privacy and your peace of mind. So call or text for your free report, The Secret War on Cash, and make sure to mention Pat Boone sent you.
Problem, especially when you look at all the problem countries in this world have had people come through the southern border. You have people coming from Iran, from North Africa, other places in the Middle East, of course China. This is not good. And yes, one of the jarring things, and I think some of our folks who've been down there have noticed, sometimes you get these big swarms of people and they're military age males. Okay, a military age male coming over from like the Middle East, is that really something that we want to be green lighting in this country? I don't think so. So I do think it's been a disaster, but I think that with those types of folks from those types of problematic countries, I don't think that we've actually even seen the full extent of the damage. I do think there's going to be a terrorist attack in this country that people are going to be able to link to the southern border. Unfortunately, I wish I didn't believe that, but I don't see how you could have this many people come in from problematic areas and not have something bad happen. Yeah.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show on Patriot.tv Live and our X Spaces simulcast. And that was Governor Ron DeSantis just a little bit over a week ago talking about the threat. And the threat is internally inside our country on our soil now of the United States of America. Hundreds of thousands of illegal aliens invading this country through the southern border because of the current president's policies and the policies that he eliminated that were working at the very first day of his administration. And that's why we're here today to talk about a new book that's out by retired U.S. Army Colonel Kurt Schlichter, an author and my friend, and he's joined us today to discuss the current state of affairs in the Middle East. And really, this is what I wanted to get to this second half hour, Kurt, is to talk about the book and why it's so important that people actually read it. What led you to write this book in the first place?
Well, 10/7 led me to write it. I started writing on, October 7th, the attack happened. I started writing it on October 10th. And I was talking to my traditional publisher, Regnery, and Harry Crocker, who's the editor over there, suggested, it might work better as fiction than nonfiction, because I wanted to talk about the threat we're facing. So I did it as fiction. I did it as a novel from multiple points of view. So you don't have one character Forrest Gumping his way all through various places. And I finished on November 29th. And it takes you from before the attack, it takes you to the Middle East, takes you to our border. You see law enforcement, you see people normal people caught up in the attack. You see government officials, you see military people, you see cops suddenly facing an unprecedented challenge. Everything in the attack is absolutely authentic. I've talked to a lot of military people, a lot of intelligence people, law enforcement people, government people about what could happen. And what this posits is a multi-day attack by literally thousands of people infiltrated over the border with very little training, no real need for centralized control, just instructions to go somewhere and do some stuff that's awful. And we're not ready for that. If you remember Boston, remember those two idiots with a couple handguns and some pressure cookers?
Yep.
Well, they shut down a whole city for 2 days. 2 untrained guys. What if you have thousands of military-age males with minimal training, but some, and light weapons, simple weapons? You've got an unbelievable disaster. And the only thing, at the end of the day, it's normal Americans reacting. We are our own first line of defense.
Buy more guns and ammo and train. I mean,
Right.
That's our motto, I think. At least every retired military guy and gal that I talk to, and you and I say it all the time publicly, man. What was the size of the force you used in what are the numbers you were talking about in this book?
10,000. And you think,
that's
a lot of guys. Holy cow, that's a division.
No, that's all.
No, it is. That's also 1.5 days of people crossing the border.
Right, exactly. I mean, that's what I mean. That's all. I mean, there are hundreds of thousands of people from all over the place that we don't have any control over.
No control. Look, you take these guys, and look, the foot soldiers in these things, the kind of jihadis, are always kind of the dummies. Not a lot of them are the geniuses. They don't have a lot of things going for them. Most can't find wives. Most can't find jobs. All they've got is their bizarre jihadi version of Islam. You train them for a few weeks on light weapons, light tactics, and how to film things and put it up on video. Because, of course, a terrorist attack is an information operation. You want to publicize what you do. You're not decreasing American. Well, I mean, there are ways to decrease American combat power. I do talk about that in the context of our woefully small manned air wings. But it's remarkably simple, because if you basically have suicide killers who are going to take their guns, go to a mall and kill everybody they see, you've eliminated logistics, communications, command and control. You've eliminated all the challenges we face as officers. You just have to get them there with the stuff, tell them this is where you go at this time, and it's very, very, very dangerous. And that's how the terrorists do it. These are not complex, coordinated, synchronized operations. Well, they are synchronized, but none of them have to know about it. You know, you get a group of little 5 guys, they sit in an apartment. Tuesday the 26th, you're going to go down to the bus station in Los Angeles and you're going to shoot it up. And you keep shooting until they kill you.
Yeah, they're going to go after the soft targets because that's what they think. Even though we have hundreds of millions of private AR-15 platform or AR platform firearms in citizens' hands, they still think we're soft targets. Well, we got a hand up over in the Spaces audience. Let's go ahead and take that question. Jenny, go ahead.
Hey guys, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm on your show, so really quick, I gotta keep it short and sweet. So a couple questions. I mean, I've been awake out of the matrix for a long time now, and following, going down the rabbit holes, surely but slowly preparing. So how much longer do you think us Americans have to prepare and train before the attacks happen, and when do you think the attacks will happen?
I think it could happen in the next hour. The beauty of this for the enemy is simplicity. Okay, and Rob understands the beauty of simplicity. You want to make things as simple as possible for your guys. Not because your guys are necessarily dumb. A lot of the jihadis are dumb. But you want to make it simple so that you get the effect that you're looking for. What I talk about in the attack, and again, it's not a didactic, well, this is tactics and strategy thing. It is a novel that talks to you, including from the terrorist point of view. So you see how it is. You make it very simple and use your advantage, which are surprise, ruthlessness, lack of respect for your own lives, against American weaknesses, which are the fact that we just think we're in this exceptional place where nothing can touch us. And as we saw on 9/11, they can touch us. This is asymmetrical warfare. This is putting their strengths against our weaknesses. Same thing happened in Israel. You look at what happened in Israel. Gaza was guarded by a fence, a lot of troops watching the fence, essentially. And they thought the threat was small groups of 5 or 6 guerrillas trying to break out. They didn't imagine the threat would be 2,000, 4,000 guerrillas hitting at multiple places on a holiday at a time when they were doing rocket fire because they knew that the people would be in the shelters instead of at their stations. You can't count out the enemy to ignore our weaknesses. And everything I talk about in the attack, everything I wrote in the attack is so obvious that I felt okay doing it. Some of the stuff I didn't mention. There are a few things that I didn't say. Maybe they can't figure out those vulnerabilities. One thing that the attack does talk about is the aftermath, and that's where Rob's guys get into it. That's where Rob's Air Force guys shine. Because if you kill tens of thousands of Americans, I think all bets are off. And the guys who did it are going to pay. And the hard way, the Hiroshima way.
Yeah, I mean, when you open what I call the war box on the United States, like this type of activity was, you're not going to be able to predict what our response is going to be. I think some people called Al Qaeda and the Taliban learned that early on in the Afghanistan operation, which was the right thing to do to defend ourselves. I mean, it was wrong to go into some 20-year democracy building exercise. That's totally different than what I'm talking about. That's what we're going to do. That's exactly what we're going to do.
We need to make punitive expeditions great again, Rob. And that is a classic military operation from the Romans on. Bad guys do bad things. You go in and you kill a whole bunch of them. And then they behave themselves. You don't go in, kill a whole bunch of them, and decide you're going to try and turn them into a New Hampshire's Hamlet, right? With democracy exactly right. And everybody loves each other. Look, these Pashtun pedophiles are a very different kind of people. And they don't want to be Americans. And we're not, I mean, just imagine the arrogance that is, present that makes you think that everybody wants to be exactly like you. Well, they don't. But you know what they can be? They can be on your side. You can pick the side that doesn't want to kill you. You can operate a very important weapon system, which is briefcases full of money. And look, I've got no problem buying off third world potentates. You have to
Neither do I, man. Well, we got to take our last break. But when we come back, I mean, this is there are things happening, and I want to talk to Kurt. I want to talk to you about the lack of good information that the American citizen gets and how that interacts and has interplay with this type of operation, because there are things happening in this country already that could be taken as test cases for the types of attacks that Kurt does a very good job of describing. This operation that kills tens of thousands of Americans almost by surprise, but we shouldn't be surprised because we know they're already here. We'll be right back on Rob Maness live at Patriot.tv with Colonel Kurt Schlichter.
Superfoodshouse.com. Transform your life today. We have partnered with a superfood manufacturer and offer you a one-stop destination for organic, non-GMO superfoods. At superfoodshouse.com, we offer a premium selection of nutrient-rich superfoods, from the revitalizing protein shakes to the Super Amino 23 protein tablets. These tablets help your body rapidly absorb protein, creating lean muscle and burning fat. Visit superfoodshouse.com right now and seize limited time offers on superfood products. With just a few clicks, you can have these nutritional powerhouses delivered right to your door. Superfoodshouse.com, where wellness meets convenience. Your path to a healthier lifestyle begins here.
Experts say that Russian hackers found a way to hack our utilities, and the hackers may still be in there, waiting to strike.
Go after their power, go after their water, and you can bring a nation to its knees.
They're identifying targets, they're positioning malware so they could pull the trigger when they wanted to.
Experts see the intrusion as a possible precursor to an unprecedented Russian cyber attack that could, in the event of war, devastate the U.S.
We know that China has been hacking everything they can and stealing our intellectual property. They want to take down America's economy. They want to take down our morale. They understand that if they can destroy our economy, they can destroy our future. We're at war.
Bring us up to date on the investigation. What do you know?
All right, well, Kira, just this morning we learned that Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas has been briefed on this outage, and the DHS is now working with the FBI and state police you just mentioned on this investigation. There are so many questions needing answers. 2 power stations were riddled with bullets Saturday night. So far, the sheriff in Moore County says no group has claimed responsibility for what they are calling vandalism at this point, but it's being investigated as, of course, a criminal act. State of emergency has been declared, and there was a curfew in place until 5 this morning. Big question, was this criminal act an act of domestic terrorism in any way? No one has said that officially just yet.
To the Rob Maness Show, and we are talking about the book, The Attack, which was written just immediately after the October 7th, 2023 atrocities that were committed against Jewish civilians in Israel by Hamas from the Gaza Strip primarily, with the author, Kurt Schlichter, retired U.S. Army colonel and attorney, about this very subject. And that little clip there, Kurt, I picked that one because, number one, my Revolutionary War ancestors from Moore County, North Carolina, but that was in late December, I think, 2022. but that's not the first attack on a power substation. They're usually remote locations. We've seen them out in California in the mountains, up in those areas where you have remote relay stations and substations. They're fairly easy to attack with rifles and everything. And who's to say, with the lack of good information that we get from our public officials responsible for keeping us informed, that these aren't preliminary testing type attacks to see what they can get away with, how many people they can affect. And as you can see, I mean, you shoot out a couple of transformers at a substation, you got 45,000 people out of power for a couple of days. You write about this in your book, don't you?
I do. One of the attacks happen over 3 days. The third day is attack on infrastructure. And one of the things I do talk about is the attack is attacking power stations, relay stations, transformers, because you can't go down to the transformer shop and get another 40-ton transformer overnight. They're very vulnerable, and that's a very well-known vulnerability. There are vulnerabilities I didn't talk about, but that is one that's very, very obvious. Cyber is another. Our gasoline refineries are yet another. I mean, you can climb a fence and be inside a gasoline refinery that refines gas for 2 or 3 states. And, gasoline refineries are essentially giant bombs. Just add fire.
Yeah.
The thing is, Rob, we are victims of our own success. The Army, Air Force that you and I served for so long, and the other services have, over time, done a great job of protecting us. It gives us a false sense of security. There are bad people out there who want to do bad things to us, and it's often hard for Americans to understand and accept that. Americans are, and you've operated with Americans around other forces. The ugly American stereotype is just nonsense. Americans are very nice to allies, very nice to other countries, maybe too nice. And that is part of who we are. We tend to believe everybody is exactly like us, but they aren't. They hate us, and the safety and security and prosperity that we live in is not guaranteed. It's vulnerable, and simply because it's been 22 years or 23 years almost since we were attacked here in the homeland in a major way, we've kind of forgotten that we're vulnerable, and we have not taken the action we need to take.
Yeah, I mean, even the young people that volunteered to serve in the military right after 9/11, they've grown up. Most of them are retiring from the military if they stayed. So you have kids that are coming up to that service age for entry level. They don't really know what that was like. They don't have that experience other than reading in history books. And I don't think our public education system is really teaching that kind of history anymore, from what I can tell. They're teaching stuff like critical race theory and how all white people are oppressors, and critical gender theory, and how you're going to be forced to play in somebody's mental delusion and mental dysphoria at the detriment to your own sanity and religious beliefs. They're not really focused on this kind of issue, and I think that leaves us very vulnerable. I mean, guys like me and you, we're getting older, and yeah, we have our guns, we're ready, we talk to our neighbors, we train. I continue to train. I even carry now, where in most places where I didn't ever think I would have to do that when I retired in 2011. But I feel it necessary based on why you wrote this book, that there are hundreds of thousands of illegals that have come into this country, in mixed with 10 million illegals that have come into this country since Biden took over. So they're all intermixed with about 10 million people and a little over 100,000 of the potential adversaries. It's like you're looking at an air traffic control screen, and all of the transponders go off at once. So all you have is the little dots that are the primary radar targets, and it's just a big cloud. how do we, can we identify these people, or should we just continue to prepare ourselves like you and I taught people to do? Buy more guns and ammo, train, plan with your neighbors, know who's going to do what, and be ready to defend yourselves.
Have to do both, and that's going to require a change in administration. I think it's kind of funny. I commanded well over 1,000 troops with automatic weapons on the streets of Los Angeles during operations. But if I want to go get a concealed weapons permit here in LA, I have to go get a psychological test. To carry a handgun, not a machine gun, not have thousands of guys. I mean, like literally 1,000, 1,300 guys with machine guns. But of course, I do carry when I'm in free states because I have got concealed weapons permits for free states, and that's why places like where I am now are going to be the kind of soft target. I don't think if I was a mass killer, I'm not sure I would start shooting in Oklahoma, but California looks like an inviting target. And again, I'm not telling anybody anything they don't know. Okay, these are choices that California has made, and unfortunately, Californians are going to pay the price for it. Clearly, once we get President Trump back in, God willing, we need to start deporting illegal aliens. And when I say deporting, I mean massive deportation. And there are other ways you can do, taxing remittances, that sort of thing, to encourage people to depart. But you're so right about the schools. People grow up without any sense of history, and that's a real problem, because history doesn't care if you know about it or not. History is not concerned with your feelings. History is a way to anticipate what's going to happen, because what has happened is what's going to happen. There's I think there's a lot of arrogance among our society that they think we're something new, and we are new in certain ways. Individual freedom, the level of prosperity and security, that's all new. But the world hasn't changed. Human nature hasn't changed, and there are bad people out there who hate us and want to kill us, no matter how hard we want to not believe that.
Yeah, exactly right, Kurt. Well, thank you for joining us today. Where can folks find your book and follow you on X and the other social media places you're at?
Well, I'm on X at Kurt Schlichter, nearing 500,000 followers, so that's fun. Go get The Attack on Amazon. And check out my Kelly Turnbull action novels. Those are a lot of fun, too. But The Attack is selling very well still. So you can get that out on Amazon.
Well, thanks. And you're on X at Kurt Schlichter,
I'm on
right?
X. Yeah.
There you go. Follow the man. Follow the man. He's got great input, and his one-liners are fantastic, folks. And the books are really good. I've read most of them, especially the Kelly Turnbull series. Well, that's it for Rob Maness live on Patriot.tv for today. Tomorrow's Training Tuesday. We've got Matt Couch of the DC Patriot, and he's going to give us a long update on the Seth Rich case. You'll remember Rich. He was murdered. He worked for the DNC and is tangled up in the whole Julian Assange mess with the data that got put out of the Democrat Party in the 2016 election. I'm Rob Maness, and I'll see you tomorrow on Patriot.tv.